You're listening to the Fun Never Ends podcast with Metalhead Nelson and Brutal Brett. Find us at funneverendspodcast.com. Hey, welcome to the Fun Never Ends podcast. I am your Metalhead Nelson, and with me is Brutal Brett. Brutal Brett, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a rainy Sunday here in Southern California, but we're brightening things up with a true legend in the field of production, of drumming, and of metal and hard rock. Mr. I'll let you introduce our guest yourself as well.
He's an amazing drummer, legendary drummer for the band The Rods. He's also an amazing producer who's produced Anthrax's Fistful of Metal, Armed and Dangerous, Spreading the Disease, along with Overkill, Possessed, and Exciter book coming out. Well, Tales of the Dog, right?
Tales of a Wild Dog.
Or
cut. And it's actually
Tales of a Wild Dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's available now.
It's available now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Carl Canedy. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. By the way, we're talking Southern California, East Coast, Pennsylvania here. Where else?
We're both in SoCal, so
Okay.
I'm in West Covina. He's in Northridge, San Fernando Valley, that area.
When I was young, I used to live in Culver City. So
I love that area.
Yeah, I love it. It's changed so much over the years since I was a kid. But anyway, and my book is out. It debuted at #1 on Amazon's pre-release heavy metal. I think last week it was still down. It only dropped to #10. And the Kindle, all that, the PDFs, they're coming out shortly, maybe Monday, tomorrow, or the next day. So that's happening. And I'm working on my audiobook. I'm ready to start that. So a lot going on with it. And by the way, thank you for saying legend.
And you have your
legend because... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can go ahead, sir.
So I want to say thank you for saying legend. I have a story about that, and I would love to meet this young man again. But we played in Sweden, at Muskell Rock. And this was several years ago now, maybe 6 years ago. But this, at the end of the show, the people were in line for autographs with us, and this young man kept saying, he was very young, he's probably, I don't know, maybe 16 or 17, but he kept saying, pointing to me and going, legend, and he kept calling me. And then when he got up to me, he was like, legend, sign stuff. So he was and I could tell he was really kind and sweet, but he kept calling me legend, and I was like, what the hell is this kid? Like, I was getting angry. I'm like, why is he calling me a legend? What's that mean, a legend? And then after he was gone, my tour manager said he was calling you a legend. And I was like, oh my God, I feel terrible. So all these years I've been carrying that guilt with me. So I hope I meet up with him again to apologize. But thank you. It's always, humbling that someone says you're a legend, because, I don't know what that means, but old, I guess. But anyway, it's that story always sticks with me. Whenever I hear legend, I think, oh, I hope I get to say I'm sorry.
Honestly, it's a true honor to be able to interview legends. We've done interviews with a wide number of legendary artists, so it's great to have you on board.
Well, thank you.
It's fitting for you. You produced some of what I consider the pantheon of thrash, from Exciter, Anthrax, Possessed, one of my favorite thrash bands of all time. So you're instrumental in many of the music and the sounds that have progressed into metal hardcore crossover. But
yeah, well, thank you.
I want to thank you for that.
I was fortunate enough to be right at the beginning of that, the changing of the guard, and I got it immediately. Like, a lot of my friends who were maybe only 2 or 3 years older than the bands I was producing, they didn't get it. They didn't get it at all. They didn't see the changing of the guard. They thought it was horrible music. They just thought, my one friend said, it's insect music. I go, these guys are going to be huge. No way about Anthrax. And, we bet. He bet me, I don't know, it was $10 or something, but I said, he goes, how big do you think they'll be? And I said, they'll be a gold or platinum act. And he goes, horrible, just horrible shit. This will never. And, so obviously he lost the bet, but they didn't get it, So, but fortunately for me, I fell in love with it immediately and I recognized the talent. And I'm really grateful that I was there at the beginning of it and, had whatever minuscule input I had on that beginning genre, the emerging genre.
Not
What were some of the
minuscule at
favorite
all.
albums that you produced?
That's a really interesting question in that I have uh, I have great stories about all of these bands I've worked with, and most of them are really good. And but I certainly the Anthrax albums, were really. I was dialed in and worked with the guys, and they were, I was the one who helped find Joey Belladonna, and suggested they needed a new singer, and they stopped recording and got me on the. My granddaughter is back here chatting away. It's cracking me up. Um, but seeing them, I suggested that the singer they had at the time wasn't going to get them to a major label. And they had me put Johnny Z. They would say, call Johnny, their manager. And I called Johnny and he said, put the guys on the phone. They came in and I stepped out. And within 2 minutes, they said, Johnny wants to talk to you. I pick up the phone and said, hey, John, what's up? Just put him on a bus and hung up the phone. And that was it. Here's these guys with no lead singer ready to make the album that's supposedly going to get them to a major label. And they were willing to make that change. So, it was the Anthrax records were really important to me because I think I had so much invested in it to make sure it succeeded. But I mean, I love them all. It's like Lionel Richie about what songs do you like that you've written? Well, they're all my babies, like it's okay. They're all my babies. But, you always have your favorites no matter what you say.
Oh, completely. I do have a question. I read that you grew up actually with a jazz background, being taught from, I believe his name was Tony, you wrote about. I'm wondering how that affects how you took a look at hard music and even the way that it progressed to thrash, how your jazz upbringing influenced sounds or influenced even time signatures that you would think of.
Well, in all honesty, that and I hate to disagree with you or point out an error in that, but I didn't take lessons at all. I had no jazz background, but all the drummers I loved were jazz-based drummers, but I wasn't aware of that. So I had a drum teacher when I was just starting out. I got a set of drums. We were poor, just me and my mother. We got my mother and I. And I conned her into signing this agreement for a set of drums, cheap set of drums that were crap, and began falling apart fairly quickly the way I was playing them. But I was able to supplement them and got a gig after 6 months. But I had as it went on, I just didn't know. So I had a teacher who told me I sucked. And so I was paying him and he would tell me I sucked.
Oh, wow.
So after a while, I was like, why am I coming every week and paying somebody who tells me I suck? He was a really mediocre drummer, and probably I had big aspirations, and as I point out in the book, a lot of I was just too dumb to know I couldn't do something. I was like, I'm going to be a great drummer. Well, I certainly was far from anything good when I started, and long after I started, but I was too dumb to know. And other drummers, we go watch a really great drummer or a band, and they go, oh, I'm gonna quit. I'm throwing my drumsticks away. I'm gonna sell my kit. And like, what about you? And I would say, I'm gonna go home and practice on my pillow. And first thing in the morning, I'm gonna be playing my drums as hard as I can for as long as I can. So that was my attitude. I just had that. But no, I didn't take lessons until I was 21, I think, 20 or 21 from Carmine Appice. And at that point, I started reading some music, went through the books with Carmine, his realistic rock, of course. And that just opened my eyes to a million things. And from there, I went on. And then I did take lessons. My friend, rest in peace, Billy Hilfiger, he was working at Manny's and he goes, Carl, Tony Williams is taking students. And so it's like, oh my God, I was a huge Tony Williams fan.
That's what I was
And
referring
so
to.
I started taking lessons from Tony Williams, and Tony Williams was such a monstrous drummer. And but toward the end of our lessons, we would talk music, and so that's for me that was a huge influence in terms of my productions. I still approach productions that way from the way we discussed. And of course, he went back and studied composition and became a composer. So little did I know at the time that was where he was leading, but those were the discussions we had, and they were invaluable to me to this day.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool that you mentioned Vinny, no, Carmine Appice. I've met Carmine and I've met Vinny. They're both amazing people.
Both really great drummers and both cool people. I think
Absolutely.
that family just had a great upbringing and great people in the family. Hi.
Absolutely. Um, as a founding member of the Rods, can you share some hi- highlights on your journey with the band and how it has evolved through the years?
Well, there's so many, it's been a long journey, 45 years. David and I have been together when we started the band. And we've had some highlights, of course, like the first Iron Maiden tour we did, first tour with Iron Maiden, Beast on the Road. That was great because we never really had a tour like that. We had played some dates, one else with Judas Priest and Foghat and Rainbow and different
Mm.
whatever, but we never had that type of full length tour, and that was incredible. Tour with Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance tour was really amazing. But over the years we've had a lot of uh, a lot of fun. Really, honestly, it's been a lot of cool gigs, and so I don't know that I can always pick out one thing, but it's been a good ride. David and I have gotten along well all these years, and we've had some strongly worded emails, but no yelling, no fighting. So it's pretty good for 45 years.
That's great
Completely.
for 45 years.
And when I say strongly worded, I mean strongly worded, but not yelling and not calling each other names.
Well, you can say it gives into
Absolutely.
the wild dog spirit. Which I was gonna ask, would you, with the name of the autobiography, the name of the album, the name of tours, would you say that Wild Dogs more so than hard rock is your philosophy at this point, or even your musical philosophy, band philosophy?
Um, I wrote the song Wild Dogs. I lived in a place I described to a friend yesterday. I called it the Nest. And the reason I called it the Nest was because it was a shack by a creek, but we could afford it and it was isolated. And as a musician, you want to crank your amp, you want to play your drums.
Hmm.
They had a slug in the bathroom one day. I found it this big. We had mice in the house. My cat, Elsa Sue, would catch them and she'd bat them and then they'd be between her legs and she just didn't know what to do with them. So they'd be stunned and finally they'd come to and they'd run away. So we had mice. You come home, there'd be possum. There were raccoons in the garbage. But so I would get up every day and I bought a whole case of cheap cassettes. I would pop one in and I would plug in my guitar and I would start writing riffs. And, there would be, I've got a box of them and they're just one horrible riff after the other. But I did it every day. And so I was looking outside one day trying to write a song and or come up with a riff. And I see they're neighborhood dogs, but there were three of them, and they were wild, running around in this little field by the side of this cabin we had, this little shack, the Nest. And that's what came to me. I just watched them. They were wild. They were chasing something, and they were vicious. And it's like, oh. So I think it's always been the Rods. We've never been the critics' darlings. We've never been record companies haven't thrown money at us. We haven't always had the best tours, but we've had great fans. So I think I don't know what the philosophy is, but I think that we still write and record because of the loyal fans we have, the wild dogs, as we call them.
Wonderful. I completely agree with that. And
What's up, sweetie? This is her first interview, by the way.
She's having a ball over,
oh,
huh?
I can't believe I can't believe she's talking so much. She's only 4.5 months, but crazy.
oh wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Um, So my question for you, sir, is in addition to your work with the Rods, you collaborated with various artists and musicians such as from Manowar, Elf, and Thrasher. Can you tell us some of these collaborations and what you've learned working with these talents?
Well, it was clear. I mean, I had known David and Joey DeMeo and I had worked together very briefly. David and Joey had a band called Thunder, which was one of the loudest bands up until Manowar ever. I went to see them with, and I have an album out with Colossus, my band from the mid 70s. And that album came out in mid-December on Deco Records. Kelakos, Kelakos, for anyone who wants to go find it. And so the bass player and I went to see Thunder was the name of the band. And I've worn earplugs since early 70s. So we're there and I have my earplugs in and they have so many amps on stage, but there was like a composite of amplifiers, no one set of like Marshall stacks or they were all just whatever amps they could find, and they found a million of them and they plugged them all in. And I took my earplugs out and the hum was so loud it frightened me. It was incredible. I said to our bass player, their hum is louder than we play as a band. And when they played, they lit up. My friend Dave DeLuce was playing drums, and this is what you saw. You heard no drums, you heard no cymbals. David and Joey were so loud, you just saw him killing himself on the drums, but you didn't hear any drums whatsoever. That's how loud they were. So when Joey asked me to join Manowar, I loved it. It was incredible being at the genesis of the band, seeing the songs. I knew they were going to be huge. Joey was driven. Joey was brilliant. Joey had a vision that wasn't going to be stopped, and I knew they were going to be massive. And so that was really, it was amazing to be there and see that, and working with Eric and Ross, who I think is phenomenal. And so anyway, that was a great experience as well. And I've been fortunate enough to have some good experiences like that.
Terrific. And I wanted to speak actually to your own solo, I guess, band, if you will, that's eponymous, and how the sound is very much like the albums that you produce in a sense. There's a much harder sense of the riffs. There's a lot of use of double bass. I was just wondering what your inspiration for your eponymous band was in comparison to any work that you've done previously. And if there even is a difference to you in the way that it sounds.
Well, the first Canedy album, which is called Headbanger, I wanted to do an album of the first two albums. We wrote songs that were co-owned by MCA. So I didn't want to touch that material. So I wanted to do a song original. So I found songs in my catalog that I wanted to re-record and some new songs. And that's how I put that out. I'd never really intended to do it, but David was doing solo albums and I was like, I'm not going to sit around, so maybe I'll do an album. So that's how that came about. So that was a combination of new material and material I'd written that I reworked. When it came to the Canedy Warrior album, that is something I'm very proud of, like the proverbial crown jewel in my discography. That was with Charlie Rossello, Tony Garuba, and I've been playing in a local band with Tony Garuba for quite a while, for a number of years. And so he and I were tight. And then Mike Santasiero was the singer, and the three of them had worked together on different projects. They've been together on and off with TLC and different projects. So we wrote that material over a pretty extended period of time, but I think that's a great album, and I'd like to relicense that album soon because I think the world needs to hear that album more. That didn't get exposed during COVID, and so I'd like to re-release it because I think it holds up really well. So yeah, that was heavy, but that was something we worked on, and I enjoyed that process quite a bit. So, and now Mike and I have a new project with John Hahn, who played on my solo album. Billy Sheehan's played on 2 tracks so far, and that I don't even know what to call that band yet, but it's really, I can't wait for people to hear it. It's kind of like it's very catchy, but it's also has elements of progressive in its prog. So it's really cool. I'm really excited about it.
Ooh, I can't wait for that.
Oh, me neither. That's very
I
much
love
up my
prog.
alley.
So, and that's a big
Speaking of,
big part of that
since you
is
had mentioned Billy
John Hahn.
Sheehan,
Yes. What's up, baby? I'm
um,
listening.
2017, the Rods recorded an album called Vengeance, and you have Ronnie James Dio on 2 songs. Can you talk about that experience with Ronnie in the recording those 2 songs with the band?
Well, I always say I have to, you know, like MMA fighters after they have a wicked fight, they always say, praise God. I have to praise David because glory goes to David because Ronnie was going to sing 2 songs. He was going to sing whatever 2 songs David suggested he sing. And David thought the Code, the song that I wrote, was perfect for Ronnie. And so Ronnie came in, and I've worked with so many great singers, but David had told me all along that Ronnie was a one-take guy. And I thought, I've worked with great singers. Nobody's a one-take. Nobody. Well, Ronnie was a one-take guy. He was incredible, super sweet guy. And I had known Ronnie like in the early days when I was with this band, Raw Meat, but it was all cursory. Hey, Ronnie, how are you? See the guys in Elf because we rehearsed in the garage, finished garage, and they were in the house. And so we'd all mingle but I didn't really know Ronnie per se. But a little bit I got to know him, but what a sweet guy and what a brilliant singer. Unbelievable. So for me, it's one of the highlights of my career to have Ronnie James Dio sing a song that I wrote. And as I said, that's all. David is the one who really deserves the credit for. I can never thank him enough for giving me that gift.
Well, I completely agree with that. My next question is, you write about having Forrest Gump moments throughout your career in the book as well. And I'm wondering if there were any highlight Forrest Gump moments that may not have been touched upon in the book that you think would be great for, to be brought up outside of it as well.
Well, there definitely I've had some Forrest Gump moments and that aren't in the book. The book was close to 500 pages, and the publisher said, no way, it'll be too expensive. So we had to, at the last minute, and that last minute I think was about 4 months, and I handed it over to Phil, my co-author, to deal with that task of cutting things. So there are a lot of moments that were in the book, but the Forrest Gump thing goes back to what I said. My whole life I've been too stupid to know that I couldn't do something. I just would say, I can do that. And then I would be too dumb to know that, no, you can't. Like, yeah, I can do that. And, sometimes that ignorance is bliss thing kicks in. And so you work harder and you learn, and sometimes it takes longer to get there. But it's like me when I went to Valix Agency. I wanted to be in a professional band. So I had this big reel-to-reel recorder, and I sat down in my living room and I recorded 7 minutes of a drum solo. And so I go to Valix Agency and I plop it on the desk and ask him to listen to it. So he listens to this 7 minutes of drum solo. And as Terry Singleton, rest his soul, would always tell the story. He goes, I didn't know if he could even play a beat. It was a drum solo. I didn't know if he, and nobody calls the agency asking for a drummer. They call it agency looking for a band. But I said he was nice, so he said, okay, if we get a call, we'll let you know. The next day he got a call from a band called Big Daddy and the Duquesnes, or the Duquesnes, as we like to joke about it. And so Big Daddy and the Duquesnes called, and I went for the audition, and I got it, and it was a huge shot in the arm for me because they were horn band, and I had to learn how to play swing and play with the horns. And Charles Carrington, the keyboard player, really worked with me a lot, and he really, I owe him a big thank you. And so after that band finally dissolved, I called Valix again and say, Terry, hey, I'm looking for a band. And he goes, nobody ever calls us, Carl, but if something comes in. And the next day, Raw Meat called, Brian Miles called, and looking for a drummer. So I go, I got a number for you. Is this guy Carl? And so, those are types of Forrest Gump moments where I just luck into something and, you try to make things happen for yourself. But a lot of it's been because I've been too dumb to know I just can't do it. And I just forge ahead and somehow make it work.
The idea of failing upwards, as they say.
Failing upwards, yeah. It wasn't even about failing at all. It was just I can do it. Can't do it, but I can do it. So, like, I wanted to be a great drummer, and boy, was I so far from being even a good drummer when I was thinking that. I was like, wow, this guy is delusional. And I guess maybe the teacher was right. When he said I suck, I'm sure I did suck, but that's why I was there for him, right? So he should have said, you suck, but let me see if I can get you to suck a little less. But no.
What inspired you to pursue drumming and metal music, and how did you develop your signature sound or signature style as a musician?
Well, at 4.5, I went to that wedding reception and I saw that red set of drums, and it was really like the white light shone down on it and Hallelujah singers, and I was transfixed. Oh my God, that's what I want to do. I didn't know what drums were. I had no idea. Looking back at it, writing the book, I realized that whatever obsession started at that point, I had no idea what they were. They were just these cool looking shiny things, and I wanted to play them. But I didn't even know what that was. Had no clue. But I've always been obsessed from that moment on. 4.5, I was like, that's it for me. I want to play drums. But as time went on, I got a set of drums. And when it came to metal, I was playing pop music when I started. Like I said, I got the crappy little kit, and then I had a little portable, like this big, but like a foot by 10 inches, was a Singer, which was not the biggest name in audio, right? Singer sewing machines, Singer portable record player. That's what I would play, and I would buy 45s, which for all of you people who don't know what a 45 is, it's a little round record, not a big one. It has a big hole in the middle of this little record. And so I would play that.
I have a couple of those.
Yeah, I play that, and it's a little tiny speaker, and I would have to listen to it like, and I'd try to play along. And that's how I taught myself to play drums. And so I was playing pop music. And then one day when I was watching American
awesome.
Bandstand, and when back then, nowadays, now it's like YouTube, everywhere you go, like I have lists of them now because I follow everybody. But TikTok, everything you do is a million drummers, and they're just phenomenal, and they've learned technique early on. And but for me, you would watch the Ed Sullivan Show, or you'd watch Shindig, or you would watch one of the pop shows, and then for a brief second, they would show the drummer. I think that's how there were things, I built things for myself on my drum set because I needed them out of necessity. But I would watch and see the drummer. Oh, look how he's got, like Dino Denali from the Young Rascals. His cymbals were straight. Buddy Rich's cymbals were straight. And I thought that was so cool the way they could play them. So you'd only have that brief, the songs were 2 minutes. Half the time the bands didn't even get 2 minutes. And in that 2 minutes, they would show the drummer, or you'd see them in the background very briefly. So that's how I had to see what kind of gear drummers, how they were played, what kind of gear they had, and then try to remember it. And, my memory wasn't good then at all. Like I couldn't remember a lot of that stuff. So just like now, I don't even know who I'm talking to, but no, I'm kidding. Come on, you guys, let's laugh. That was a joke. But
I know.
Okay, you'd have to learn, you'd have to watch, and you'd have to see stuff. That was how you learned what people were doing, what other drummers were doing, and how you would be influenced. And so when I saw Blue Cheer, I know this is a long way around the answer, but one day I was watching American Bandstand and Blue Cheer came on, and they just blew up the little tiny speaker in my black and white TV set. And I went, that's what I want to do. And that was when it hit me. Blue Cheer was my gateway drug to heavy metal. So, and then when I got to produce them, it was freaking cool because, and I should have given Paul Whaley,
That's awesome.
I should have given him a bill for all this drumsticks and cymbals I cracked and drumsticks I've broken because of playing harder now like he was. So that was it for me. And as far as my style, you asked about how I got my style. My style
Awesome.
is
Yes.
a composite of, and I still do it. I practice and I learn from everybody. I steal from everybody, and I do it proudly. You know, I've stolen from everybody since I started playing. So now I'm at a point in my career where I try to serve the song and I try to do things that are a little more original, but there's nothing I do that's original. It's all been digested, everybody else's ideas, and then I come up with a hacked out version of it. And, so then it's like, oh, that's Carl's style. Yeah, that's my style. A hacked out composite. It's like a big gumbo of all the drummers. And so I'm good with it. I'm totally, totally good. Hey, baby.
Well, you talk about writing riffs as well, and I would just want to know how do you consider yourself a riffsman as well when it comes to guitar for building songs, or is it just building the structure so that you can get a rhythm section around it?
You know, I've been playing guitar since I started drums within a couple months. And, I have about 12 guitars, I think, but I don't play very often. I haven't much in the
Oh
last few
wow.
years because I've been busy with other things. And so it's not like if you listen to some of the songs I write,
Mhm.
like Burned by Love or, Wild Dogs, or whatever. So I write riff songs and I write other songs that are just sort of straight ahead. When I play guitar, I've learned now that to not try to guide my songs or steer them in a direction. I just pick it up and noodle. And if there's a cool riff that sounds good to me, then I just go with it. And I don't worry about is it going to be 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 6 minutes. I just go with it. And wherever direction it winds up going into, then great. So I never think of it as a riff guy or, I mean, I wish I'm trying to learn more now. I'm trying to work on some different scales and patterns so I have more options when I'm trying to write.
Virtuoso over here. That just shows that that's why you helped create the thrash sound of 80s and 90s, I'd say.
Well, thank you so much. I don't know about that, but you know, I definitely have tried to make sure that the bands I've worked with, I captured what they were, their essence, and tried to get it transferred to the tape and capture the recordings that way.
It you did it justice. I'll just say that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm a legend. What can I say?
As a
A legend.
I hope I
like,
meet
as a
that because
musician and a
I can
gear nerd
apologize.
myself, I'm curious as to how your kit is.
How my kid is? Well, my kit's right here.
Yeah. What are you running?
Everything's. I can show you my
I'm
kit. I
curious
see
as
it.
like what do you I mean, what you're are you a Zildjian guy, Sabian?
I have Well, I have an endorsement with Kasha symbols. So
All right.
that's what's on my kit right now, all Kashas. I have another set. I have a lot of them actually, but I have another set that I use for live. And so, but I've used Zildjian forever. I have Sabian, I have Zildjian, I have Paiste. Just you've been playing as long as I have. You collect everything, and you just have a lot of it. So, like my daughter says, when I bring in a new drum, like I have 20 snare drums. Like, oh, good, another drum. So, you collect things. You're a hoarder. But I record right here. All my drum tracks for years now have been done here.
Oh, that is awesome. And it looks like, do you have your albums that you've worked on and produced behind you by chance? That's what it looks like.
Uh-huh. Those are all albums I've worked on, recorded, produced. Um, there's just so many that,
Oh,
I
wow.
have like
That's
40,
amazing.
45 or 46. I can't lost track now. We're doing my Wikipedia. And plus there are a lot of sessions. I just played on a session for someone in Manchester, England, and that was fun. It was a really cool pop song, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm actually going to put something out, um, and of course I got paid for it. So that was another plus. I enjoyed the song and I got paid. So okay, it's a win-win for everybody. And he was really happy
Absolutely.
with the drum track, or at least so he said. At least he's a good liar. I appreciate that. And but I'm thinking about just putting something up and just letting people know that I'm interested in performing on something. I like recording. I'm set up to record. So I maybe
I was about.
do
Oh,
more of it.
sorry. I
Go
was going
ahead.
to follow that up with: is there any style that you've played on, whether for just doing a performance track or doing a studio session, that was out of your element more so than ever, but it really forced you to take a look at how you need to play for it and what your own take on music is?
There's always that. For me, everything is a challenge. And more so now, it's more of a challenge to do something that's, I always try to play powerfully. So it doesn't matter what the genre is. I want to play powerfully. I also want to be creative. I don't want
Yeah.
to. And I remember hearing this quote from Buddy Rich talking about rock drummers. And there were a few drummers he liked. He was a bit of a snob. And, to me, he's one of the best drummers ever. So he could afford to be a snob, whereas unfortunately I can't. Um, but he said that, he goes, all these rock drummers, I hear triplets coming off of the toms, all these drummers. And he's right. Like, we're rehashing the same stuff. So now I try not to rehash, like, I don't, I certainly can't reinvent the wheel, but I try to bring something to the song that's a little different from a basic standard fill or the kind of fills that are being played, because there's a lot of, if you listen to, there are a lot of, there's so many fills that you could just take that drum track and plug it into 10 other songs. And I try not to do that. And of course, some of the drummers are so fast that there's no way I could do it anyway. But point being that I try to serve the song musically now, as well as come up with a cool, technically cool riff. But I try to make it something that's memorable and more of a hook rather than just a drum part. And for years, I would be working on material and I have, this is an awesome fill. It doesn't fit in this song, but it's going in that song, which is not the right approach to take, just, I'm going to shove it in there somewhere because that's my lick now. And I want everybody to hear my lick. I don't care if it destroys the song because it's my lick. And that's what people need to hear. I don't approach it that way anymore. Although, that wasn't a bad approach. Maybe I should think about that again. I'll rethink that. Maybe I'll start doing that. Just shove my licks into whatever song it, whether it fits or not.
It's a signature. You need to have your signature.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'll drive
do
the
it.
truck. I'll drive the truck through the backyard, no matter whether there's a fence up or not. I like that.
A pop song, and then all of a sudden you're.
Uh-huh. A little ballad, and I'll play some heavy fills.
It could be the crescendo moment that it needs.
That's right. Yeah. I have this meme I had my friend Eric Philippe
It gives it
make for
that
me.
in the air tonight kind of moment.
That's right. That's such a great fill. What a memorable fill that is. Even if there were nothing else behind it, that's just, that fill alone is so great. But my friend Eric Philippe, he did this meme for me that I wrote. I wanted it. It's like in a tablet now. It looks like it's in a tablet, and it says, if you're in a band with me and you think I'm going to play a fill, or if I play a fill, stop playing. And if you think I'm going to play a fill, stop playing. So, I like to live by that. I'm sure all the musicians I work with know that. Just don't get in the way of my fills.
Coming from my perspective on more death metal type of drumming, I completely agree.
Going outside of
Death metal drumming is unreal. Some of the drummers, unreal. Oh, yeah. Somebody said something.
I was gonna ask, going outside of this, I would like to know some of your favorite interests. Like, what would you say your favorite movies and things to do outside of when you're not on the road or recording or producing?
I love movies, but my life is really busy with, my daughter says it's drums and real estate because I'm a realtor. So I sell houses and I record. That's been my life now for years and years. And of course, the last 2 years I've worked on this book, which again, I thought a lot of people would ask me, interviewers would say, you have so many great stories, you should write a book. And, we could say that about all of us. Like, oh, I'm sure you guys have stories, you should write a book. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, I should write a book. Like, who cares about my book? Nobody want to read my book. But my daughter and I are really close, and she said to me more than once, she said, the stories from your childhood are always so sad. And I thought, wow, that's not something I want to leave her with. You know, I wanted to know my whole life because that was sad. My childhood wasn't the best childhood, but you know, a lot of us don't have great childhoods. But then as things went along and, you know, the too stupid to know better kicked in, things got better. And so I thought maybe I should write a book so she has the whole story in my own words. So that's when I started doing the recordings. And then there were a few people I tried to work with, and Martin Popoff was the one who, you know, he's somebody who is so prolific as a book writer, as an author. He's written so many books, but he really convinced me to uh, to do it. And he was kind enough to write the foreword to my book. But so I got transcription software. It sucked, and so then I thought typing it. There's no word flow with that. It's uncomfortable. It's not the way I speak. And so I
Yeah.
thought that's not going to work. And then Phil Harrington approached me, and he said, "I will transcribe your audio recordings." And I thought, well,
Wow.
you know what? No matter where it goes, I will. It's something I'll have. My daughter will have the recordings in my voice. She'll hear the whole story. And a lot of the emotions were there. You know, sometimes I'd get really choked up talking about things. And, you know, and then other times I'd be very excited about talking about things. Or sometimes I'd be laughing at myself about how foolish I was. Like the Harry Chapin story when the guy said, "Hey, do you think you'd want to audition for Harry Chapin?" And I said, "Oh, no, no, I'm a heavy metal drummer." Like, brilliant, just brilliant. I had nothing going on. I had no connections anywhere, but I knew the guys in Harry Chapin, and I would go see them. And Harry Chapin was huge at the time, and so auditioning and maybe getting a gig because I would go see them everywhere, like wherever theater or hall they were, wherever I was. And I'm like, oh no, I'm a heavy metal drummer, not thinking that the doors it would open for me and whatever. Like, no, I'm going to stay here in upstate New York where I know nobody and have no chance of getting anything going. That's a better choice. So but anyway, I thought my daughter will have it, and if it doesn't come out, it doesn't matter. She has the audio file. So that's why I wrote the book. So it just was a case of Phil Harrington being such a great guy. And then he came up with the idea of asking commentary, which I said everybody can have carte blanche. I won't. I have not even read all of the commentary in my book from other people. I
It's
didn't want to
wonderful.
because
It
I didn't want to I didn't want it to be. First of all, I said I wouldn't change a word, and we didn't. But I didn't want it to change when I was writing the book, how I approached the book. I didn't want it. And then when I was proofreading, I read little bits and I stopped. I thought I don't want to read anymore. So at some point, maybe I will read it. But yeah, I thought it was a great idea. And I thought it was good that everybody could have their voice. And I always liked the Jagger Richards thing when they would contradict each other. You know, Mick would say, "Yeah, bloody good show," and Keith would go, "No, we never did that show, mate." And you know, they totally contradict each other. I thought that was brilliant. I love that. It was like hysterical. So I thought, yeah, that might be cool. Anyway, you were saying the commentary, you enjoyed it, or
But it gave that dynamic, which I thought was really interesting as well. And I was going to comment later on about the tone of the book being very conversational, and you saying that it was a bunch of audio transcribed really shows in the way that it's written. And I'm wondering, will you do an audiobook with that? And even with some of the commentators adding their sense of commentary as you're speaking afterwards as well?
I do have. I have obviously a recording at home. I have this ball right here. Do you see that? Let me see if I can show you. Do you see
I do,
this?
Yeah, that
yes.
it's that
Yeah,
red ball,
right.
right?
Red ball. It's like a big Nerf ball. But I have another one over here that's a regular, you know, portable vocal booth. But I just bought that because I'm recording for this new project and they have one in the studio and it was amazing how it shut out the room. And I thought, that's it. So I'll be recording it myself. I have a few people who've agreed to come here and do their own parts. So we'll see. I mean, there's so many people it's impossible and they're all over the place, but I will have different voices and
Yes.
I will have female voices doing the females because otherwise it'd be I think it would be sound kind of weird for me to do it, but You know, if I have to, I will, but I'll try not to. And by the
Go
way,
ahead, Brett.
sorry, what I was going to say, the Kindle, the PDF, so you can put it on your,
Yeah.
Mac or whatever, your Kindle and whatever, that'll be out, I think tomorrow, sometime soon that's released. So for people who want to watch it with an e-reader
I'm
or read it with
absolutely
an
going to
e-reader.
get the book. That's for sure.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
So that'll be on my next purchase list.
Well,
I
thank you very
Go
much.
ahead, Brett.
Oh, it's a completely fun read. It gives very much. I know that the comparison probably isn't that great, but the movie Airheads and how you say that the sense of philosophy of being too dumb to know when to stop. That the way that you say that and the movie Airheads just came completely to mind.
It's more like too stupid to know to start, like not to start. But that was me. That's been carried me the whole way through. Just okay. I can Forrest Gump my way through.
Maybe that's the key to life in general lately.
Forrest
I
Gump
don't
your
know.
way.
For me, I don't think I had. Looking back on it, I realized I didn't have any other options. I didn't have money behind me. I didn't have support. I'm an only child. So there were limited options for me. So when I look back at it now, I think, well, you know what? That was survival for you, pal. It's not like, even though I just was too stupid to know better, but I was like, I'm going forward no matter what, no matter how stupid it may have seemed to somebody else. But for me, that was my path. And so that's probably was a strength for me. And it was also a survival thing for me where you got to go. You can't, if you sit around, you're going to die. So nothing's going to happen for you. You got to go out and create some things for yourself. And, that's what's worked for me. And, here I am now, and I wanted to put more of that in the book as the ending, but, here I am now. I'm getting ready to do another St. James album. I think I have 2 more tracks left to do on the new Rods album, which is a killer album. And then I have this new project that has some fantastic songs, I think. And David's written a song on the new album that is, in my opinion, one of the best songs he's ever written. So that's on the next Rods album. So I have a lot of projects going that I'm very excited about.
What would you say is one of your favorite tours that you ever did?
Probably Iron Maiden. That tour was pretty crazy. I mean, I liked all the tours. I love being on the road. I love playing. But the Iron Maiden Beast on the Road was the first time in England. We were recording our second album. The audience was fantastic. They loved the Rods. They were so supportive. And we've all been like with the Rods. We would be on the golf course in the morning. We'd be cut off T-shirts, long hair, black shirts. We go bowling. And back then, we're talking 81, 82. People were like, you have long hair. Certain people go, "You're gonna get it, faggot." And so we were still dealing with that. And so we were out there, and people would look at us like, "Holy cow, look at these guys are on the golf course." And David and Gary were excellent golfers, and I could really hit the ball in every direction except the correct one. So we were a sight to see. Like, look at those guys are good, and then that guy. Look at the bozo. Look at that clown out there. I just put it in the woods again. But we would go bowling. We would go sightseeing, and so we were in England. It's historic, and I love Scotland. But everywhere we went, it was something historic, and that's where I learned to love Indian food, because Indian food in England is great, as everybody who's been to England knows. And unfortunately, here Indian food is not always. It's hit or miss. So when you ask somebody here about, hey, do you want to go for Indian food? They're like, well, I hate Indian food. But like, you haven't had good Indian food. That's why. But anyway, so the Iron Maiden tour was really cool. And for that reason, it was historic. It was fun. It was new. It was exciting times for us. It was cold. It was wet, but it was cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'll ask the next question. That's kind of a follow up. Are there any? Do you see yourself touring still continuously, at least smaller legs, weekenders? I know most acts at this level do mainly festival appearances, but do you see
Mhm.
yourself doing a little bit more than that when the time is open?
You know, we've been asked to do things. Our friends in Anvil, we're good friends with those guys, and I have nothing but respect. They're brothers, and you know, I just love
I
them.
love
And
Anvil.
right, and they have invited us out so many times, and I'm surprised that promoters haven't done a Rod's Anvil show because you know we've opened for Anvil a few times, and the crowd goes nuts. Like we're a good package together, really a great package for the fans. But Anvil goes out and they tour so extensively, and for us, it just doesn't make sense. You know, we just can't really, none of us really can or want to get away. And we're not at the level where we could tour really first class because
Mhm.
if you could do that, it's a little easier. It's still hard, but it's easier. But I love being on the road. I found when we did the Dio
Yeah.
Disciples tour, I found that I got stronger as the tour went on because you're in such a routine. We get up, we go look for David and I love tea, and we're always out looking for tea, and you know, so we'd be out looking for a shop, a bake shop, and sitting having tea, and we walk around and see all the sights all day long, and then we go play, and you know, then we hit the bunk after, and you know, the bus ride would put me to sleep, so I slept better than ever. I should consider doing something like that, coming up with some kind of motorized bus on the road simulator for my bed, so keep me sleeping. But so, you know, I found myself getting stronger because I was in the groove. So I love doing that. But I think for us now, it's festivals and short legs, you know, 3,
Mhm.
4, 5 days, you know. And the thing is, there's no money anymore. Money is
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
everything is so expensive and people just can't pay you the money that it
Yeah.
makes it worth playing. But I would love to. So if anybody's hearing this and they want to pony up some cash or be a benefactor.
Absolutely.
You want to invest in a heavy metal band. We're the Rod's perfect. If you need a tax write-off, we're your people.
We're speaking it into existence right now, manifesting. And final question for you, Nelson.
Oh, absolutely. With your book that just released, your autobiography, Tales of a Wild Dog. I got it right this time. I'm sorry for that I butchered it at the beginning. That came
And my next one will
out
be
on the 4th.
Tales of a Dirty Dog.
Offers
We'll write that one.
readers an intimate look into your life
Um,
and career. What motive? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I went off on a different tangent on that one.
that's okay. You were kind of cutting in and out, so that's good.
Mhm.
Start over.
Okay, I was cutting it out. Was I?
Mhm.
All right. I hear you now.
Okay. Okay. I just want to know, after you release the book, what do you think readers will gain from reading your book? And uh, I know you talked about Martin Popoff had convinced you to write the book. Prior to that, did you ever think about writing a book?
Yes, I had. And as I said, many, you know, people had told me that I should write a book, you know, journalists who interviewed me. And I can't think of his name, and I apologize to him. But there was a magazine in Russia that did a 4-page spread on me. And in that conversation, we talked about it and it was so in depth and knew so much about my career. We went as we went along, and we realized that the language barrier and the time difference was too great to write a book together. For me to send him things and him to send me things back, and for us to edit and do it, it was impossible. So I sat on it for a while, and that's why I said when Phil came along. But it had been in my back of my mind, and then when I wanted to write it for my daughter because of what she had said. But I think the takeaway for my book that I hope
Yeah.
if people have a takeaway from it is besides the fact that you know I'm an amazing and incredible drummer, which we want them to have that. Um, you know, so that's really
Absolutely.
important. I'm kidding. I never think that about myself. But anyway, I think the thing is that if you look at the story, it's about somebody who
Yeah.
achieved modest success at best. But I played because I love it. I'm still passionate about it, or I wouldn't. I mean, I got up at 7 a.m. and drove 2 hours to go do a vocal session last Saturday and this Saturday for the new Canedy or whatever we're calling this new project album. So, there's a dedication I still have and a passion I still have. But I think that's the thing is that, and it sums up with Carmine Appice when I took lessons from him. And there was a kid with glitter sneakers, and I would listen to him taking his lesson because I would take a double lesson and I would sit out there outside. And the guy was like, I want to play fast. I want to play fast. I want to play fast. And Carmine would say, well, you need some fundamentals. I want to play fast. I want to play fast. So I was talking to Carmen about it, and he said, if you're playing because you want to get rich, you want to be famous, or you want to get laid, you're playing for the wrong reasons. If you play because you love it, it'll last your whole lifetime. And it's not like I was playing for any reason other than I loved it. But here I am at my age, which I just turned 71, which, sometimes I say that number and go, wow, 71, pal. Holy cow. In fact, I'm using my weights a lot now, and I'm going to go downstairs and use them again because I'm getting nervous that my muscles will start to fall apart. But here I am, and that just proves the fact that, I was doing it because I loved it, and I wasn't trying to do the quick cash in for anything. I wasn't trying to sell out. I was playing what I loved, and I did it because I wanted to do it. I hope that's the takeaway, that somebody says, listen, this is what the kind of life you can have if you really want it and you want to apply yourself. It's not about having huge success. It's not about making millions and millions of dollars. It's about loving the music and being true to the music and being true to yourself. So I hope that's the takeaway that people get. That and the fact that, I'm an amazing drummer. That's important. Did I say that? Yes, that I'm an amazing drummer. That should be first, that I'm an amazing drummer, and that, I played because I loved it. And
A
of course, I'm
true,
being funny about being an amazing drummer.
I was gonna say a true legend.
A legend, and I'm a legend.
True legend.
That's the takeaway, that he's a legend. And I hope that kid,
we're gonna wrap up
I hope
this
that kid
interview.
listens to something.
I want to thank Carl Canedy for coming on here, and
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you. Nice meeting you both.
Nice to meet you as well.
Tales of a Wild Dog. Definitely get the book, and you can find him at canedyband.com.
That's right.
And thank you so
It's
much,
actually,
sir.
You're welcome. Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you again.